Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Beyond the Basics. My name is Aaron Bjork. We continue our investigation into this pseudepigraphical, extra-biblical text called the Didache. As I mentioned before, and you can watch on previous videos, it is believed that the Didache was written by one or more of the actual apostles of Jesus Christ. Where it derives from is up to debate, but most scholars either say A, it is from the area of what is now called southern Lebanon, or from northeastern Egypt, at least where we believe it came from the latest that we know. But from the language that's placed in this, and some critics of it would say, well, we shouldn't look at it, venerate it, even consider it because it's Catholic in nature. Actually, this is probably much more of a Protestant-friendly writing. It's very anti-Catholic, especially with the way the Catholics believe. Their views of baptism, their views of the Eucharist are extremely anti-Catholic Church. So those who say that, they prove they have not studied. Some people might say it's a little too holiness in nature. It's not. It's a little more focused on works. Works righteousness, some critics would say, and I would say maybe they have a bone to pick with that, but what's wrong with works? I think we're sometimes too dangerous into this hyper-grace movement where works tend to just not be important. Without works, your faith is dead. So I think it, like I've said before, studying pseudepigraphical, extra-biblical texts. Pseudepigraphical simply means texts that are said to be penned by someone that scholars say were not, pseudonyms. We've studied the Book of Enoch on this program, some other things. These things are, I think it behooves the church to look at them. And there's a great deal of things that are in them, especially when it contributes to the harmony of the text. So here with the Didache, last week we talked about the way of death, which is chapter 5. As you find, as you look throughout the book of the Didache, the writing of the Didache, it lines up with Scripture almost completely, if not completely. So chapter 6, at least with this translation, is titled, and the next 3 chapters are extremely short. They're like 3 or 4 verses each, and that's just how we decided when we discovered the writing to separate it out. So chapter 6, which is 3 verses, is titled, to this translator, See That No One Leads You Astray. So we just got done talking about the way of life and the way of death. Now don't be led astray from this way of life and way of death. Remember, Jesus Christ is not just the truth. He is the way, truth, and life. Then he says, no man comes to the Father but by me, me implying way, truth, and life. It seems that we are great with knowing the truth of Jesus, but we want nothing to do with the life, and we don't want to go the way. That's a problem, according to the Didache. Chapter 6, verse 1, See that no one leads you astray from this way of teaching. Since all other teachings train you without God. The point is that it's saying, it doesn't say this truth of teaching. We've lost rabbinical Christianity, in my opinion, because of what Constantine did in 313 AD, removing the Jewishness of our faith. And we took too much of Egypt with us into the wilderness when we came out from the Catholic Church as the Protestant Church. Rabbis make disciples. Jesus did not command us to go into all the world and make casual followers, stamping out Christians on the assembly line, telling each other to repeat a little prayer. Jesus commanded us to go into the world and make disciples. There was a common understanding in the first century that to make a disciple, you had to be a rabbi first. And rabbis, it was a specific way of training. You would bring your disciples into an arena of discussion, knowing that they all sometimes would have different theological opinions on things that are non-essentials. And it wasn't vitally important that they all agreed, but it was vitally important that they argued. And what a rabbi would do is present a problem, then he would say, fight. And they would talk about it. This is a way of teaching, the rabbinical way of teaching. And they were all together, having all things in common, as it says in the book of Acts. They didn't all agree. We see that's true. Paul and Peter, the council at Jerusalem, it was very clear they didn't all agree. There's no reason to believe that should change today. We're all different. chapter 6, verse 2, for if you are able to bear the entire yoke of the Lord, the entire yoke of the Lord, if you're able, which implies that maybe it's possible some won't be able, you will be perfect. But if you are not able, then at least do what you can. So those who say Jesus commanded that we be perfect, and it says in the book of 1 John, that if one says they are of Christ, but if they commit a sin, they are no longer of him, they are a liar. You are totally misinterpreting Scripture, because it's Paul says, if we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. So you can't gerrymander your way around Scripture to tailor-make your own theology. One verse can't contradict another. One author cannot contradict another. And the whole idea of Scripture is in the mindset of drashing. That's what the Midrash and the Mishnah talk about. Well, that's Jewish. Well, Christianity without Jewishness is a pagan religion. So we got to get back to this understanding. Go. So thankful for you joining us here on Beyond the Basics. Tune in next week as we finish up the rest of this lesson and continue to move forward in our studies. Thank you. Be blessed and be a blessing.